Welcome to Philly Fortune Talks with your host, Jake Penny, where the city's brightest minds share the secrets behind their success. Are you ready to be inspired?
Imagine retiring at 34 with a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio. Today, we explore the journey of Dan Harvey, known as Dan the Real Estate Man, a seasoned real estate investor whose blue-collar to millionaire story has inspired many. Dan's proven investment strategy have yielded impressive returns through multiple market cycles, allowing him to build an extensive real estate portfolio in residential and commercial properties. Also, as the owner of the eight-figure development company DMH Investments and founder of the Real Estate Investor Alliance Group, BRAG, Dan is dedicated to mentoring the next generation of real estate investors, and his unique strategies and investment perspectives have made a significant impact on the industry and his mentees. Dan, it's a pleasure to have you on Philly Fortune Talks.
Thanks for having me, Jake. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. So your journey, blue collar to, multi-millionaire investor is truly inspiring. Can you share with the listeners what initially motivated you to pursue real estate investing?
Yeah. So, funny enough, I was not inspired to actually invest in real estate. I give a quick backstory. So, I went to a trade school called Dobbins. I was very, very fortunate between my junior and senior year at Dobbins. I got a co-op position working at SEPTA. So it was like half at school, half working at SEPTA. And once I graduated, I was hired at SEPTA full time. So started out at 17, I was a union electrician at 17. So like I had that good job like right out of high school.
Yeah.
And then that was really that was kind of my path that was set forth, right? I'd worked there, whatever, I don't know, like 40 years. And then at 60, I would retire and, live my life, right? And so that was the plan. And by happenstance, I started another business. I was a promoter for years. This is when I was young. I started off doing small parties. We built that up to doing medium-sized stadiums. So like 10,000 seaters. We would bring in like rap artists and stuff like that, and we would sell tickets. And actually, that's how I thought that I would become wealthy. Right? That's not what ultimately happened, but that was the thought. And I was young. I was in my like early 20s, and my mom, she is a real estate agent, man. But she's my mom. She saw I was a young guy. I was making money, and she said, "Why don't you invest in real estate?" And I had no interest. Right. But this is mom's asking. So I said, fine, I'm gonna let her think that I'm gonna buy something. So I'll go out, I'll make mom happy, and then I'll let mom down later, right? And make her feel like I went through the process. And then ultimately what happened through the process of me pretending like I was going to buy, it opened my eyes up to the possibility of buying real estate. And I was like, well, it wouldn't be a bad third income stream. I had this job, I had the business, and then I could have this, rental property. And so that's how I got started. My first property was a bank-owned duplex that I purchased. And I tell everybody that my strategy at the time was a super complex strategy. So I had about $25,000 saved up, and the property cost $20,000. So I'm like, well, that works. That was it. That's how I got started.
That's amazing. Having, your mother that was already in real estate investing. Usually people just don't have that. And you had that backing from your mom. So that's awesome. Kudos to mom for, forcing you into it pretty much.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I had zero interest in it.
So your proven investment strategies have yielded impressive returns. What, key strategies do you think that have been essential to your success in real estate?
Sure. So when I started off, I I started at a really good time. So I gotta say that was definitely one of the things. I started investing heavily around 2010.
Hmm.
So after 2008, when everything collapsed, there was a ton of bank owned properties. So it was really a timing thing. And so what I started off doing was I would buy bank owned properties. And this is when banks were selling them selling them for pennies on the dollar. And these were not full guts, right? These were, you had to paint them, maybe like new kitchen flooring, and you could rent the property out and you could refi cash out. And interestingly enough, like I didn't when I started investing, I didn't have a mentor or wasn't a part of any kind of coaching group. So I didn't realize that banks would give you more money than you had in the deal, right? This was before the whole, bigger pockets bird thing was like a whole thing. Now everybody and their mother, cousin knows about it, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know. And when they told me, oh, we'll give you this much, I'm like, oh, so I get all my money back plus some. And so that's what I did. I did that. I mean, I utilized that strategy for about 5 years. That strategy is what retired me from SEPTA. Just buying single family properties, duplexes, triplexes. Then I moved in in into commercial real estate. Because again, at that time, the banks were still trying to get them off their books. So I was able to buy 6 units. And this just sounds crazy now, but I was able to buy. In fact, my first property, the first larger property that I bought was a 6 unit property in Sharon Hill. It was bank owned. I think I put it under contract for like they were asking 100,000.
Wow.
I think I offered 90,000. Hold up. And then before we went to closing, somebody broke in and stole all the copper. Now I was going to change all that stuff out anyway. But I called the bank like, hey, somebody broke in here and they stole the copper. They dropped it to 80,000. Just so
Wow.
people understand the market at the time, right? And this is something that I try to impress upon investors. The market's constantly changing, so the experiences are going to be different. So when you're listening to people, you need to make sure it's investors that are investing in this current market, right, and
Mhm.
not the market of years ago, even a few years ago. So yeah, so I was able to buy that for $80,000. I fixed it up. I think at that time it might have appraised for 350 or something like that. The next property that I bought was when I purchased it, it was a 5 unit property. And again, this just goes to the time frame. I was working on a property like 3 doors down. This little old lady came out. She saw me working on the property. She was like, "Do you think that you would want to buy my property?" This would never happen now. Never, this would never happen now, right? And this
Yeah.
large, it was a 5 unit. I think I bought it for $180,000. And this is when I started to utilize the strategy that I moved into, which is the multifamily conversion strategy. Because the property, even though it was currently 5 units, the zoning allowed for up to 8 residential units. So I built another residential unit in the building, fixed up some of the other units, raised the rents. And then I went back to the same lender, like, no, I went back to the same lender like 6 months later, and I had the property appraised again. And I was able to then recoup all of my capital plus some. And so that's kind of how I got started. And then moving a little more forward, after the market started to heat up, banks stopped selling properties at any real discounts, right? Because investors were flooding. back into the market. So they, banks are not stupid. They're like, well, we don't need to sell these things for pennies on the dollar.
Right.
Sell them at regular pricing, and people are going to buy them. And so I was trying to figure out a strategy in which I could buy multifamily properties, but still have, but still but still gain that equity. And so that's when I really pushed that strategy even further, of doing multi-family conversions. And so what I realized is that you could actually take, say, a single family property, and you could turn and you could convert it into a commercial property. You could buy. I've done it with churches. I've done it with small warehouses. I've done it with like garages. And the powerful piece of the strategy is that the person selling you the asset of this is selling it to you for what it is. But I'm buying it for what I can convert it into, right? So they're happy. So for somebody looking, and they're like, well, I can't this doesn't make sense as a single family flip. Well, that's fine, because I know that I can turn it into 5 units. And from that point of view, it makes a ton of sense. In fact, it's actually kind of cheap. So that's how that strategy really took root.
Yeah, I absolutely love the burr strategy. That's what we specialize in, more so like the full gut burr strategy. That's what we're really good. Not so much the scratch and splash, or like the single
Scratch
family.
and splash. It's the first time hearing that. Scratch and splash. That's
So,
nice. I
or
like
like
that.
the single family duplex conversion or like triplex conversion. That's what we specialize in. So that's awesome. I mean, geez, I was talking to a buddy the other day and I was like, man, I wish that, I was in real estate before the gurus and before it became cool. Like I wish I was in middle school buying real estate because and not wasting my time in school. But that
Yeah,
wouldn't
like, what am
happen
I
because
doing
I would.
here? Dad, come on. What we doing here?
Yeah, right. Why am I not out there buying real estate?
I'm not out there right now. That's
Can
funny.
you describe like a particular challenging market cycle you've experienced and how you navigated through it?
Well, I'll be honest. I mean, this market cycle has been a little challenging. Now, I didn't face the challenges that a lot of other investors faced. Um, so obviously we had COVID. That wasn't necessarily a market cycle, but that was a part of the market. So there were good and bad things that kind of happened there. But right now, at least for the strategy that I was utilizing, it made it difficult when the rates were going up and up and up, because
Hmm.
a big part of my strategy is that I need to model the deals out, right? And for those who may not know what that is I need to, have a good idea of what the rates are going to be based, and then know how much my rents are, so I can figure out, okay, what the value of this property is, and is this property going to cash flow, and will it service the debt? It's really difficult if the feds are going up, a quarter point a month, right? Because you don't know at the end of the year. I'm sorry, at the end of, so say that my projects were taking 12 to 18 months, let's say. So in previous years, the rates were fairly stable, right? For
Hmm.
years, it might have moved a half a point, maybe a point. That's fairly stable. I could pick the higher side of that rate, and I could model that higher side, and I would be fairly comfortable knowing that, okay, fine, if it's here, it still makes sense. Excuse me, you can stress test it. If it comes in less than that, fine. But if the rate is going up so quickly, you can't model that. And I think where a lot of investors got into trouble was they were already in deals that needed for the that it only made sense if the rates were at a certain point, right?
Hmm.
And then once the rates shot up, right, and I'm sure that you were, in it, like I'm sure that you were investing during that time. Rates rates were like in the fours. I mean, it shot up to sixes in no time, right?
Overnight. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like.
and for deals that had some room in it, or fine. But if the deal was already tight and you were at fours and fives, I mean, fours and fives made everybody look like a genius, right?
Yep.
Because you really had to do a lot to mess it up. But once you start getting into sixes and sevens and eights, and I mean, when when things were really bad, I went to this conference. It was called the Pitbull Conference. Now it's like the National Private Lenders Conference, something like that.
Okay.
I'm not trying to plug their conference, but that's just what it's called. So, but anyway, I went there. After the Fed started to raise rates, and so that group is sort of like the largest group of your hard money lenders and of your DSCR lenders, and they were in panic, full panic mode. Nobody, they were losing money left and right because, they package all those loans up. They don't keep those loans, they sell them
Nope.
all. And they were losing money, and some people were going bankrupt and went out of business. And so what they were trying to do was hedge their bets. So they started, like, they were raising the rates all the way up to nines and tens, and it was insane, right? And so actually, what I did, I just put a pause on everything, right? I had built a decent like portfolio, so I didn't feel the need to really do anything. I said, well, let me just kind of wait this out and see how this all works out. But yeah, it got crazy. I mean, what's really impacted me now, it's not so much. Most of my properties are in Philadelphia. What's really impacted me is taxes have gone up substantially. So I've had properties that went from, say, $2,500 to 75.
Mm.
And insurance has gone up. I mean, I'd say in the past, I don't know about yours, but in the past 4 or 5 years, easily 70, 80%.
Oh, absolutely. Insurance is crazy now.
And that will restrict your cash flow. But when it comes to a commercial property, that also impacts the value, because your value is predicated by your cash flow. And so, and it's just not me, that's just the math, that's the formula.
Yep.
So a lot of a lot of investors, a lot of properties are just worth less at this moment. And
Right.
then what happens is you have what's called resets on like a lot of your loans. So a lot of the loans that we have are not 30-year fixed. They may be it may be a 15-year term and a 20 and 25-year amortized, but it's maybe a 5-year reset or 7-year reset, right? And so you may reset out of, you were in the fours, and now you're resetting into a 7.25. Plus you have your taxes. So but those issues are above me, right? There's nothing I can't dictate what the Fed does. You can't dictate what the Feds, do. And so what I've done as a hedge at this point is now, um, I'm back to doing more flips and stuff like that, and looking at my portfolio and saying, okay, what properties no longer really make sense,
Mm.
uh, and let me, sell those off, and I can reallocate that capital into something else.
Yeah. I mean, right now is really tough, especially for people that are just getting started. I'm thankful that I have a solid deal flow, but there's a lot of people that are struggling.
Mm,
And it's like you just said, like trying to figure out how you can kill the deal first.
mm,
So that way you look at every variable that could go wrong. And if you can't kill the deal, then of course buy it. But if not, then it's like, all right, wholesale that thing on, let it go.
mm.
Don't force a deal right now because it'll haunt you for sure.
For sure. I mean, this is it. I don't think you should ever really force a deal, but if there were ever a time not to, it's now, right?
Yeah.
There's really no reason now is the time to be really disciplined. I think once we come through this, that there will be opportunities. I think um, in any business cycle, they'll always have these downturns, and there's pain, right? There's real pain going on right now, right? And so it might sound bad, but what happens is it flushes some folks out, right? It sort of thins the herd,
Yep.
and those of us that make it through to the other side, um, either come out stronger or smarter, or
More
whatever.
humbled or
Yeah,
something.
whatever the case is, right? And but you're still there and you're still a player. Rather than kind of having to restart over again. And that's what we saw happen in 2008. And at that time I was still a W-2 guy. I would hear the story, so it didn't really resonate because my main income came from working. Right? I didn't even really touch the the rental money. I just let that roll. But now I understand it. Like, okay, people got wiped. People with large portfolios got
Yeah.
wiped out because you can get caught flat-footed. You get caught flat-footed, or you get caught over leveraged, right? You have a lot of deals out there that are not cash flowing, or they're not in service yet. And but you have to pay that interest to like a hard money or private money or whatever the case is. There's only so long that you can do that.
Right.
So yeah, I think that we're in a very interesting time. I've certainly, I won't pretend. I mean, I felt some pain, and but there were great lessons in it for me. So the way I look at it is, okay, how can this make me a better investor?
Hmm.
I don't look back with like any regret. Oh, I wish I'd done this. That's just pointless. I just look at it like, okay, these are some things I could have done better. And moving forward, now I know, I'll do this, that, and the third a little bit different.
Absolutely. I mean, I wasn't in the real estate market 2008, 2010. 2008, I was still in middle school. 2010, I was in high school. But,
Man.
but
You're like an old guy, man.
I'm 29. I'm 29.
Oh, wow, that's great, man. You're doing awesome.
So, but I've looked back on those cycles just to learn from them, and
Mhm.
it's funny to, well, it's not funny, but I bought original stock certificates and mounted them on my wall in my office of Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, and Enron as like a reminder all the time while I'm sitting in the office. You're never too big to fail, right? So it's like be humbled every day because yeah, you could be on top today, but you could be on the bottom flat on your ass tomorrow. And as a reminder, don't over leverage, do smart deals, stack your cash. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, the market will chew you up and spit you out. And that's tuition,
Yeah,
tuition to the marketplace.
absolutely. And it won't miss a beat. It won't
Nope.
even it won't even recognize you.
No, I won't even remember you.
It
You're a
won't even-
fly in a wind.
yeah. So yeah, but that's um that's a very smart strategy is um to have something up that keeps you grounded, so that you stay focused on the things that that will keep you moving forward. But also too, because you're a young guy, is real estate is it's a long-term game, right?
Right.
And I think one of the even though social media is great, right? It gives people the opportunity to do stuff like this. Like even when I was starting out, you didn't have that. But I think what people believe is like it's an overnight success. It
Yep.
just it just happens, and it's like that's not how it. I mean, every once in a while, you may have that breakout like individual, but generally speaking, that's not how it happens. It's built on wins and it's built over time.
Right. Unless you're a trust fund baby or something like that, then you come out with a couple mil that you can play around with. Sure, it can happen overnight, but most likely you've never gone through grit or trial or tribulation and you're going to piss it away and probably
Mhm.
fail, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
But you spent a lot of time and contribution on mentoring the next generation of investors.
Mhm.
How do you go about that? What do you prioritize? And, honestly, like what made you want to go out there and teach others?
Yeah, so I remember still what it's like to just be getting started, to have all these questions, to not really understand, and to have people that were not willing to really help me out. And so I said, um, when I was going through those issues, if I actually figured this thing out, I'm going to help folks out. And when I first started, prior to having like a whole structured group and courses and all that sort of stuff, I would just share what I was doing on like social media, because I thought it was interesting. I thought it was cool. And I thought other people might also find it interesting.
Hmm.
And I just love, like, I could talk about real estate. I mean, anywhere. Like, my wife knows that she kind of. It's funny. We were at a birthday party just the other day. It just so happened the guy there, a guy I just met the guy, and he also invests. And man, we must have talked for about 30, 45 minutes. She had to come like grab me back, like, come on. But I mean, I really like it, and I understand what it can do for you, right? Not just the investing, but the actual but the journey, right? I know people have
Right.
heard this, and I think until you really go through it, it might sound like just a slogan or just a cliche thing. But who I've become as a person, building this business, speaking to people, I've become a better person because you have to grow into uh um like that next level, right? So it's impossible to kind of stay the same person. So all those reasons is why I like to give back. Plus it also keeps you sharp.
Right.
I so
Yeah, I totally agree there. It's something that I've definitely always wanted to do eventually when I think like that I have the authority to,
Mhm,
just to give back and teach others like what you can do through the vehicle of real estate, right? It's like, not everybody likes real estate,
mhm,
but it can be the vehicle to take you where you want to go. So to be able to spend time with who you want, when you want, whenever you want, without having to look at a price tag eventually, right? Because it's a slow cash journey.
mhm,
It's not get rich quick. It's get rich, slowly over time through the journey if done right.
mhm,
And to be able to teach that is really awesome, and to give back to people to say that, hey, it's not this one way. It can
mhm.
be this way as well. And you can have financial freedom, whatever financial freedom means to you, because that's different for everybody.
For sure. And one of the things that was important for like me was kind of speaking to people that kind of come from my background and letting them know like, yo, like, this is something that is achievable, right?
Hmm.
Many people will try to will they'll beat themselves even before they try, right? Because they have been told, oh, this is not for you. This, even coming from my blue collar background, right? It's just certain things. It's kind of funny. We are conditioned in a lot of
Hmm.
different ways. If you watch any advertisements that are geared towards blue collar guys, what do you normally see? The guy kicks back and gets beer, watching TV. He's watching the game.
Drinking a beer.
Yeah, yeah, he's drinking his beer. You're almost never anything that is intellectual, right? Never reading a book. If you watch like the white collar guy, is might got his newspaper or he's checking his stocks, and there's these sort of different expectations, and
Right.
you'll be surprised how many people they will internalize that, like, oh, that's me, that's how I'm supposed to be, right? I'm Fridays, like, I go and I get drunk until I come back on Monday, and it's like, no, you don't have to do that. You
Right.
don't
You
have to
don't
do
have
that
to.
at all. And I remember as part of my story that I didn't mention, like I knew when I turned 30 that I was going to leave SEPTA when I turned 35. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to talk me out of it. And sure enough, um, so I quit SEPTA 3 days before my 35th birthday. And I remember my wife was telling me, because I got married in that time span. Like you should really let people know. Like my best man at my wedding worked with me. I didn't tell anybody because I really did not want anybody to like discourage me. So if there's one other piece, one other tip I would give people that's more important than any formula strategy you can learn about real estate. You have to work on yourself. You have to work on your mind. You have to that if that stuff is not strong, none of this other stuff is going to matter. Because you either won't do it, or when you're faced with anything difficult, you're going to quit. um and a lot of what I had learned up until that point in my life, I had to unlearn that stuff and put new information into my brain, because I realized that it didn't serve me. It probably never served me. But so mostly it's more important to work on yourself, work on your mind, and all those all the like the formulas and stuff. It seems a little difficult when you haven't done it, but after a while, like that's you
Simple
got
math, pretty easy once it
that.
gets through it. Yeah.
So,
It's mindset is so important because at the end of the day, you will go through some tough shit in real estate and you have to keep your
absolutely.
mind
That's
sharp.
lightly.
Yeah, that's lightly.
Mm,
My experience was I thought I was the man that I took a 3-day boot camp from this infomercial company that said they were going to give me a free iPod. And I went out and bought 3 properties. Now I never had a W-2 job or anything like that, but I didn't know how to like what lending was. So push came to shove. I was a landscaper, and I put all my money that I saved up from landscape. I was 21 years old, 20 years old, and I put it all down hard on earnest money deposits.
mm,
It was like $30,000 in earnest money.
mm,
And I like go out and try to get a hard money lender. He wind up being like a crooked accountant or something and pulling out on the 2 days before closing on these properties. He said he had like a Bahama deal or something. He was investing in a fund, had to pull out. So I had to call my grandmother, the only person that I knew that had some type of money, because
mm,
my grandfather passed away and he worked for Boeing at the time.
mm,
And I was like, hey, grandma, I need X amount of money or I'm going to lose 30, 40 grand in earnest money.
mm,
And, her heart so big, she said, sure.
mm,
But I took on 3 projects at once. And then I didn't know about the whole contractor con thing. And I got burned on the money for contractors.
mm,
So I'm like almost in $500,000 in debt
mm,
to my private investors. And eventually I got a hard money lender involved as well. And my parents and my partner's parents, who's, my partner in life, Liana, at the time were like, just sell everything, pay what you can back to your hard money lender and your private investors, go get a job, work to pay that debt back over X amount of years, and you got a learning experience out of it, and you never will make this mistake again. And that's why we go to work and we find a good job and all that stuff. And I refuse to take that as an answer.
mm,
And I strapped on my tool belt, bought some tools with any money I could scavenge up from keeping going with landscaping,
mm,
and started watching YouTube videos, called some friends, some cousins that knew a little bit of construction and got these houses done.
mm,
And if that moment in my life set me back, and I didn't have the grit to keep going, to not listen to the other people that were my peers in my, surrounding at that time, I would not be to where I am today. So it's
yeah.
like the grit that you need at some times, right? That was a stupid mistake. I should have had a mentor and everything like that. But It can happen really quickly where it'll chew you up and spit you out flat on your back. And
Mhm.
again, it's just tuition to the market and it does not care.
Does not care. But to that point, that says something about you, right? And this is something a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't have either. I think some people do have it naturally. They just refuse to quit. Excuse me, I was just saying this. I was like, maybe even sometimes when you should quit, you're just like, no, like, I'm going to see this thing. That I know that is something that I haven't. It's like, no, I know that there is a solution out there, and I have to figure it out. The
Right.
other thing too that I'll speak to briefly is, your folks that gave you that advice. They gave you that because they love you, but also I believe that's speaking from fear.
Yep.
So then they're kind of putting their fear that people don't realize that what they think is advice is really them projecting. And so they'll project their fear like, okay, this was me, right? But it's not you. Right. And so, some people have a higher um threshold of stress that they can get through those things and move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely stressful. That's for damn sure. Working till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock every night for like 8 months straight to finish these houses. It was an absolute nightmare. Um, but what upcoming trends in real estate are you most excited about, and kind of how are you preparing for them?
That's a good question. No, I think right now what I'm kind of mostly thinking about is, I've been doing this for a while. More so than trends is what do ultimately I want my portfolio to look like, right? How do I want it? How do I want it to operate? Because I know what got me kind of to this point, buying and see neighborhoods and doing the whole birth thing, and it's like, hmm, is that is that where I ultimately want to be, or do I want to pivot into something different, moving forward, either different area, different level of assets, maybe B assets in AB areas. So that's more what I think about than trends. I don't really get too caught up in trends. I know a lot of people do like short stay kind of stuff. I feel like I'm a classic investor. Like
Yeah,
I'm not interested in running a business per se. Like once it's kind of up and running, it's just kind of running, and I have to do very little. You know what I mean? I have my property management staff, they kind of run it. So I don't know. I mean, is there something out there that you're seeing that you think is kind of interesting?
absolutely not. I mean, there's trending stuff, but that's that shiny object shit that'll just take you off track and pull you off the beaten path of success. I mean, I don't want to do anything else. I mean, maybe eventually like have a fund and do that model.
Mhm.
Small like bigger multifamily buildings, but other than that, like I want to stick to residential real estate. Not no short term or vacation stuff, just
Mhm.
what I'm good at, the burr stuff on just a higher level.
Yeah, yeah. So and I feel like that's the natural, it's a natural progression. So, I'm definitely thinking about a fund. We talked about hiring a mentor. I hired a lawyer years ago to just walk me through the whole process and how it all works. The piece of that is do I want that responsibility, right? Because I have a pretty good process. I have a good amount of private investors that allow me to buy what I want up to a certain point, of course. Um, so yeah, yeah, and this is an interesting concept. I'd be curious to see what you think about it. There's always this idea that investors, especially newer ones and sometimes seasoned ones, feel like they have to kind of scale, kind of go to the next level. And my question is like, well, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with the model you have now? Not that you can't, but I think sometimes they feel like it's just something you kind of have to do. But I'm like, if you're crushing it with what you're doing now, why switch?
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Like I joined a multifamily mastermind. It was like $30,000,
Mhm.
and it's just one of my local mentors was like, why are you trying to do this? He was like, what you are doing, you have a proven system. Why try to focus on something else? Just take what you have and make it better and raise more capital and do what you do in your backyard instead of trying to invest long distance and get into syndication and then have a bunch of, partners and everything like that. And I just think truthfully, it's social media that says, oh, you need to do this, right? This is the next best thing. Oh, single family, one door, no more. Like, what if you have 70 different roofs? It costs more, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I mean, the model that I do, I'm fully gutting everything. New mechanicals, new roof, everything. So it's like the way I want to go about it is I don't have any big maintenance or capex issues for the next 10 to 15 years. Yeah, I may have like a little bit of minor maintenance issues, but nothing crazy. And it's just like they don't tell you that. They're like, "Oh, just single family or small multi-families, dog shit, and
Mhm.
you need to be doing this."
Sure.
So, I just think it's people selling the sauce. And don't get me wrong, like big multifamily deals are awesome, right? It's like, bigger paydays. You can scale quicker, I guess. I don't know. But that's just my take. Eventually I will do it. But I want to do it from a standpoint where I own still the majority of the deal. Like we own everything, me and my partner, Liana. Like I want to own everything. I don't want to have, 20% of a $4 million deal
Mhm.
and, my cash flow on that thing is only, I'm cash flowing technically $10 a door. Like, I went to the one conference and the guy's like, "Oh, I have 4,000 doors." But at the end of the day, he's making like $5 to $10 a door. Now, don't get me wrong, that scale is great, but if you're just getting started and it's like, oh, I have 50 doors, but I'm only making $10 a door, $25 a door after it's split between the GP, it's like that's not life changing money, and you did a lot of work.
So you said a lot there that, and I also tell people this: you have to know the difference between marketing and somebody educating you. And one of the things they do in marketing is they will downplay one strategy to elevate another one. Like, why are you doing that? Like, you must be an idiot, right? It's like, no, right? That's not necessarily true. But one way that I understand what you're saying. My my view on it has changed a bit because I look at things a little bit differently as almost like different investment buckets. So most of everything I own is like you, right? I don't have partners, like I own it by myself. Um, and that's great, right? I don't have to confer with anybody. I do what I want. That's good and bad, right? When I do something great,
Right.
awesome. When I do something stupid, right? I only got me to blame for it.
Yeah, that finger points back at you.
And right back at you. But also, I think that there's a okay. So then there's a sort of an older Jake right now that has all these properties and has access to all this capital. Okay, now there's this opportunity, maybe to put money into a different bucket that has a different purpose. Maybe that
Mm,
purpose is not cash flow. That purpose is this is a 5, 7 year play, and I can whatever, double my money, get some tax write-offs,
right.
right? That's not touching this other portfolio that I have here, but also I don't have to necessarily work for it.
Right.
So I think that that's now how I've been looking at it, because quite frankly, I was like you, like, man, I don't want no partners. Um, but as I'm getting a little bit older, I'm saying, okay, but I also don't necessarily want to. take all the risk
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And so what can I do to kind of take some of this money from here and move it over there with some competent folks and have the money working somewhere else while I'm doing my thing. So that's the other way that I kind of look at it. And I probably since like I have my own portfolio, I'm not really even worried about cash flow so much. That other play is more of okay, that's for my retirement or that's
Yep.
or whatever years down the road. And so I just kind of look at things a little bit differently now, and that's how I look at some of those other kind of larger deals. And your knowledge of it, even if you don't necessarily, even if you're not the GP in the deal, you understand how to look at it because
Right.
you know how they are underwritten. So you can look at a deal and say, oh, wow, this actually does make a lot of sense. I see what
Yeah.
they're to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like on the LP side, true passive income,
Mm,
tax, to lower your tax liability through depreciation, cost segregation, and forced depreciation. Um, it's like when we have a rental portfolio. It's not true passive income. It's slightly passive, but not true passive on income. But when you will invest into like private lending deal or a syndication on the LP side or a fund, like that's pretty much true passive income. Yeah, and like it's like a money for the future. It's like a retirement. It's a glorified, I don't want to say it, but 401k a little bit. I don't know. I don't like 401ks, but a better version of a 401k.
sure. So I've made no bones about it. My ultimate goal is to be the lender,
Yeah.
right? That's my ultimate goal. All right. I mean, you got to think about all the things you know about investing, about rehabbing. You would be the perfect lender, right? Find once you're older, find a you, right, and invest in a couple of yous, right,
Right.
and you can make great money, and I think a little, little less headache, right? Because like you said, being a landlord, um, is not like that word. It is not truly passive. I don't know if you self manage or if you have an outside management company, but I self manage. But I mean, I have staff, but even still, I mean, I'm still involved. They still have to ask me questions, and things like that. So, but ultimately, it's not like a job, right? You're talking about, I get a couple emails a day, or
Yep.
maybe a text or something like that. And so then that frees me up to do other things that I'm doing now, which actually, I mean, you didn't ask this question, but talking about trends, what I realized, some things I realized through COVID was having rental income is not enough. I needed some income outside of that. So I started
Mhm.
other businesses now to have some income because you run into something like that again. Now I was very fortunate that I was able to maintain everything and things ran pretty smoothly until the end. But I said, you know what? I need to have some money coming from someone else. All of my money should not be coming from this from the rental portfolio.
Right. You should have your slow money, which is your rental income, and you have your fast money, which is like flips, or if you have an awesome process with your contractors, subbing them out to other real estate investors, just so you have multiple buckets. And, that's a lot of, people grind on saying rentals, rentals, rentals. And it's like, okay, like rentals on a larger scale works great. Rentals on a lower scale, like if you have one, two, three, and something goes wrong and you don't have reserves, boy, or if they stop paying for a little bit, that's going to be a huge problem, especially if you don't have a lot of money that you're making every single month through a job or cash flow. So it's like
Yeah,
focusing on that fast cash first, build that fast cash up, and then start investing in the slow cash, which is rentals.
yeah. I'm sorry, the landscapers out here. So yes, definitely. which is why and I remember this. It was like a whole push um during COVID and during like the heyday of investing, and people were like, you should quit your job and just like, listen, you do what you want. I'm gonna tell you, I don't think that's the best idea.
Right.
You know, you're not this. It's not like you don't make a ton of money on each property, right? Especially if you're doing like full guts. Now we had the benefit of low rates, so that might have juiced the
Helps.
returns a little bit,
Yeah.
but that's done. So, um, I don't. If you have a great job and it's not a job that you hate, it's not something that's unsafe, it's not something that's killing. Like, what's the rush? Keep
Mm,
working, keep buying those properties in the background. That's what I did. By the time I left SEPTA, I was making twice as much in rent as I was working. But well, because I had the it was because I had the freedom. I only was living off of my SEPTA income. So all the money, all the refinance, it just all went back into more and more real estate. And it was just like a whole cycle. And I wasn't even like super, I was not, it wasn't a really complex strategy that I had at the time. I was only buying one at a time. I wasn't even leveraging. I would just
right.
use cash, buy it, refi, use the cash again, buy it, refi. It wasn't like I was, had some really complex thing that now, if I had to do it, you could show somebody use the same money I was buying and maybe buy two or three and do them over and over again. But again, going back to the idea, this long-term wealth, using the W-2 income as an asset, basically, right? Because that's what it is when lenders are looking at it. And I think it can really help you get to that endpoint faster and just like a lot less stressful.
Absolutely. You have that money coming in consistently with that cushion,
Mhm.
and then just cut down your living expenses as low as possible and invest every dollar over that into real estate. I always think about it, it's like if I could start over again, I would have tried to find a high paying sales job that I could grind my ass off every single day, make sizable checks, and invest that shit right back into real estate.
Yeah,
I didn't go that way because I had this mentality, oh, job isn't cool, as social media puts, you work for yourself and don't get a job because it's bad, job, just over broke, blah 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 blah.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, that's not really the case. Like your job can actually really really help you propel your success in real estate fairly quickly if you do it right.
Absolutely. It can supercharge um that part of your business. It opens you up to more financing options. And again, it just reduces the stress. And one thing that you mentioned is is super important, because ultimately what they want is financial freedom.
Right.
It's not very complex. People make it seem like, oh, is this whole complex? It's not very complex. You keep your lifestyle low for a while and increase your income. And what the problem with most people is, as they make more money, they increase it. As they increase their income, rather, they just increase their lifestyle, income,
Yep.
lifestyle, income. And so
Oh yeah.
there's never any real difference. And I've known people that make a lot of money, but they have to continue making money because they have to feed the beast. They have their house there, and I'm not talking about investments. Just a house on the beach, house there, this car, that car, this vacation, and it's great. But now you're basically a slave to that job, which is really what they want. So that way you can't really take any risk because things are too tight. It looks good from the outside, but is not. You are not financially free.
Right.
Literally, the moment you lose that job, you are done. One thing that struck me, and I've never forgotten this, is after the collapse of 2008 and everything. I think it was 60 Minutes, pretty sure. So all these stockbrokers and people who were making $500,000, $750,000 a year. and they were interviewing him. I lost my house. I lost my car. And this was like months later. It's like, what? You were making that for years. They were making this money. Not like this was your first year and
Right.
oh shit. No, years you were making this money. I've never forgotten that. It's like, what in the world were you doing with all that money? And that's the biggest problem is the lifestyle and wanting other people to believe that you made it versus investing and creating that income so that you have options, right? If you want to keep that $750,000 a year job, great, right? If you can make $750,000 a year and it ain't killing you, God bless you. And you have that residual income coming in, but most people cannot resist that creep and wanting to kind of impress upon other people, how well they are doing. And that's what really keeps a lot of folks from really ever getting free.
Yeah, like the saying, keeping up with the Joneses. You
Yeah.
know, it's like they make more money, their expenses keep going up, and they never. It's like what it's called, the golden handcuffs or the golden. Yeah, I think it's golden handcuffs. Always
Yeah.
strapped to the job. Like they at that point they can't leave. They can't focus on anything else because if they do, they're not going to be able to pay their bills.
Yeah, like where else you could, you're not unless you're in rarefied air. I'm not gonna just leave a $500,000 job and go
Yeah.
$500,000 job, right? It's just not, I always tell people you're actually better off if you're making $50,000, $60,000 a year, right? You can go find that. You can even go get two smaller jobs and fill that gap. You lose a $500,000, $750,000 job. That's
You're
that's a
done though.
difficult spot. That's a difficult spot to fill. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
If you had one piece of advice for an aspiring real estate investor looking to make significant impact in their life and just in the industry in general, what would it be?
network, network. Networking has done more for for me than almost anything else. It's opened up more opportunities than anything else. Off of the podcast we were mentioning, Ria's and um networking has done so much for me. And but the key to it is, and this is super important because there is no magic bullet. There's no, well, I'm gonna
Mm.
join this group for whatever. I don't care what I don't care what it costs. It's not a magic bullet. Like you have to go in there and you have to create value, right? You go in there, you find ways to add value to people's lives. I promise you, it's going to get paid back in multiples, right? And so that's what I would do. I would find ways that I could do something for somebody else first without any anticipation of getting something back. Just, hey, here's this thing, here's this opportunity, here's something I learned, whatever it is. And I cannot tell you how many times that have opened up so many doors, opened me up to millions of dollars. I mean, like, it wasn't directly like, oh, next day. It took time, and
Right.
build real relationships, and stop trying to do these quick hit thing. Like build real relationships, like get to know people, have lunch with them, find people like real connection. I know we live in a fast world, and I know it's a lot of kind of fakeness, but if you're a genuine person, it might sound corny, but for me, it's work. You be a genuine person, um, and you add value and have integrity. You will do great.
Absolutely. I'm big on integrity, having ethics, having values, and going about life with a serving heart. The more you give, it's the law of reciprocity, the law of attraction. The more you give, the more that will come to you in return. And just all around, if you come from a serving heart and you don't ever expect anything in return, like it's not transactional,
Yeah,
you'll just have way better outcomes in life. If you like think if you think you deserve to receive something back, then you're coming from the wrong intent. Like just give and it'll come to you. Don't, the world, the creator, whoever will
mhm,
take care of you tenfold.
absolutely, absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
For listeners who want to connect with you, learn more about your work, your mentorship program, what you're doing in real estate, what's the best place for them to go?
Sure. So I'm most active on Instagram, and that is Dan the Real Estate Man One, because I lost the password to Dan the Real Estate Man. So I'm on there constantly posting things, showing what I'm doing, giving tips, stuff like that. Since it's not a lot of selling stuff on there. Obviously, if they're interested, they can book. They could book a consultation or one of my courses. I'm also on Facebook. That is Dan the Real Estate Man. Also, they can follow me there as well.
Awesome, Dan. Well, it was a pleasure having you on Philly Fortune Talks.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Philly Fortune Talks with Jake Penny. Inspired to share your success story? Visit phillyfortunetalks.com/guest and let's inspire together.